Madam, please give me one bowl of rice. I will pay you tomorrow. I looked at the woman standing in front of my store and shook my head. Sorry, Mama. I don't sell on credit. If you have money, I will serve you. If you don't have money, please come back tomorrow. She didn't argue with me. She just looked at me for a few seconds and smiled. Then she said something that I still remember till today. Don't worry, my daughter. You will remember me. I laughed because I thought she was joking. But I didn't know that those would be the last normal words I would hear from a customer that day. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to this channel and like this video because you honestly need to hear the rest of this story. My name is Amaka and I sell cooked food in one of the busiest markets in Lagos. I had been selling there for almost 6 years, so I knew almost everybody. I knew the traders, the bus drivers, the regular customers, even the women who liked to come and price food as if they were buying a car. That afternoon was supposed to be just another normal market day. I had rice, beans, stew, fried plantain and some meat left. Business was actually going well, so when the strange woman walked to my store, I wasn't expecting anything unusual. She looked like an ordinary older woman. Her wrapper was faded and she carried a small black bag in her hand. She pointed at the food. Give me rice and meat. I served her. Then, just as I was about to wrap the food, she looked at me and said, I will bring the money tomorrow. I told her no. She asked me again. I refused again. That was when she smiled. You will remember me. Then she turned around and walked away. I watched her disappear into the crowd. For some reason, I felt uncomfortable. I don't know why, but I suddenly had this strange feeling that I had seen that woman before. I pushed the thought away and continued selling. About 30 minutes later, a woman came to my store. Amaka, please give me my food. I looked at her. Your food? Yes, now, the one I paid for. I laughed. Mama, you haven't paid me anything. The woman looked confused. What are you saying? I gave you money 5 minutes ago. I stared at her. You just came here. She shook her head. No, Amaka. I came here before that old woman. I became quiet. What old woman? She pointed toward the road. The woman wearing the faded wrapper. My heart suddenly started beating faster. Before I could say anything, another customer came. Madam, my change. I looked at him. What change? He frowned. The money you collected from me. I told him he hadn't paid me. He became angry. He started shouting that I was trying to steal his money. People around my store began looking at me. I was confused. I checked the money in my purse. Everything was there. At least I thought everything was there. Then I counted it again. My hands became cold. I was short by 8,000 naira. I counted again. Still 8,000 naira missing. I knew I hadn't spent the money. I knew nobody had entered my store. And I knew exactly when everything started. After that woman left, I looked toward the road, hoping to see her again. But she was nowhere. That evening, I packed my things and went home earlier than usual. I didn't tell anybody what happened because I didn't want them to laugh at me. The next morning, I returned to the market. As soon as I got to my store, I noticed something strange. There was a small black nylon bag sitting underneath my table. I didn't know who put it there. I bent down and picked it up. Inside was a bowl of rice. The same kind of rice I had sold the woman the previous day. But there was something else inside. A small piece of paper. I opened it. There were only 5 words written on it. Now you will remember me. My whole body became cold and then I heard a voice behind me. Amaka. I slowly turned around. It was Mama Ngozi, the woman who had been selling beside me for years. She was staring at the bowl in my hand. Her face had completely changed. She whispered, "Where did you get that?" I
I told her what happened. She didn't speak for almost 10 seconds. Then she looked around to make sure nobody was listening. Amaka, don't sell anything today. I laughed nervously. Why? She grabbed my hand. Because that woman you saw yesterday. She stopped. I asked her, what about her? Mama Ngozi looked directly into my eyes. That woman has not been alive for 3 years. I thought she was joking until she told me what the woman used to do in that same market and what happened to the last person who refused to give her food.
I looked at Mama Ngozi and laughed because honestly, I thought she was trying to scare me. Mama, please, how can somebody who is dead come to my store yesterday and ask for food? Mama Ngozi didn't laugh. Instead, she pulled a plastic chair closer to me and sat down.
Amaka, listen to me carefully. I'm not joking. The way she said it made the smile disappear from my face. She looked around the market before continuing. 3 years ago, there was a woman who sold food at the other end of this market. Her name was Mama Ifeoma. The name sounded familiar. I asked her what happened. Mama Ngozi told me that Mama Ifeoma was known for giving food to people who couldn't afford it. If somebody came to her store hungry and promised to pay later, she would usually agree. But one afternoon, something happened. A young trader came to her store and asked for food on credit. Mama Ifeoma gave her the food. The woman promised to pay the next morning, but she never did. Instead, she stopped coming to the market. Mama Ifeoma became angry. According to Mama Ngozi, she spent several days asking people if they knew where the woman lived. Then, one morning, Mama Ifeoma came to the market and collapsed. She was taken away, but she never returned. Nobody knew exactly what happened to her. Her store was eventually abandoned. Mama Ngozi said that after some time, strange things started happening around that part of the market. People would hear someone calling their names when nobody was there. Food would disappear from stores. Customers would insist they had already paid when they hadn't, and sometimes traders would find bowls of food sitting outside their stores, even though nobody remembered putting them there. I listened quietly. Then I asked the question that was already frightening me. What does that have to do with me? Mama Ngozi looked at the black nylon bag on my table. She came to your store yesterday. I nodded. And you refused to give her food. I nodded again. Mama Ngozi said, that's what the last woman did. My stomach tightened. What last woman? She looked at me. The woman who owned this store before you. I suddenly remembered that the woman who rented the store to me had once mentioned that the previous owner left the market suddenly. I had never asked why. Mama Ngozi told me that the previous woman had also refused Mama Ifeoma food. The next morning, money started disappearing from her store. At first, it was small amounts, then bigger amounts. She began accusing customers and even her own family. One day, she packed everything and left the market. Nobody knew where she went. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe Mama Ngozi was simply telling me an old market story. So I picked up my purse and checked my money. Everything was there. I sighed with relief. See, nothing is happening. Mama Ngozi didn't answer. She just stared at something behind me. I turned around. There was nobody there. When I looked back at her, she was already standing. Amaka, I'm going to my store. I asked her why she was suddenly leaving. She said, just don't accept anything from anybody today. Then she walked away. I stayed there, trying to convince myself that everything was normal. For the next few hours, nothing happened. Customers came, I sold food. Somebody even spilled pepper soup on his shirt and started shouting as if I was the one who cooked the pepper too well. I slowly relaxed. Maybe Mama Ngozi was right about one thing. Maybe I had simply allowed fear to enter my head. Then, around 4 in the afternoon, a young boy came to my store. He looked about 10 years old. He stood quietly in front of me. "Madam, my mother said I should collect something from you." I asked him what he wanted. He pointed underneath my table. The black bag. My heart stopped. I looked under the table. The bag was still there. I asked him who his mother was. He didn't answer. He only repeated, "She said you should give it to her." I told him there was nothing for him. The boy stared at me for a few seconds. Then he said something that made the hairs on my arms stand. "She said you would see that." Before I could ask another question, he turned around and walked away. I quickly came out from behind my store. "Hey, wait!" But the boy had disappeared into the crowd. I searched everywhere. Nothing. I returned to my store and stared at the black bag. I didn't want to touch it, but curiosity won. I opened it. This time, there was no food inside. There was a small purse. I opened the purse. Inside was a photograph. I picked it up. It was an old picture of several women standing in front of the market. I recognized Mama Ngozi immediately, but there was another woman standing beside her. The woman from my store, Mama Ifeoma. My hands started shaking. I turned the photograph around. There was something written behind it. "Those who refuse me will remember me." I dropped the photograph. At that exact moment, I heard a metal bowl fall behind me. I turned around. Nobody was there. Then, another bowl moved. I froze. This sound came again. Something was moving inside my store. I slowly stepped backward. Then I heard a woman's voice. "Amaka." It was the same voice I had heard the day before. My mouth went dry. I didn't answer. The voice called me again. "Amaka." This time it sounded closer. I ran. I didn't even care about my money. I left my stall and ran straight to Mama Ngozi. She looked at my face and immediately knew something had happened. I grabbed her arm. "She's here." Mama Ngozi didn't ask who I met. She simply closed her eyes. Then she said, "I knew this would happen." I asked her what I should do. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I was not prepared to hear. "Amaka, there is something I never told you." I asked what it was. She pointed toward my stall. "The woman who owned that store before you didn't leave because she was afraid of Mama Ifeoma." I swallowed. Then why did she leave? Mama Ngozi's voice dropped to a whisper. Because one morning, she opened her store and found a bowl of food sitting on the table. I stared at her. And Mama Ngozi shook her head. She ate it. I felt a chill run through me. What happened? Mama Ngozi looked directly into my eyes. She disappeared the next day. I couldn't speak. Then Mama Ngozi grabbed my hand and said, "Amaka, whatever you do, don't eat anything that woman leaves for you." That night, I thought the whole thing was over. I was wrong. Because when I got home, I found something sitting outside my bedroom door. A bowl of rice. And beside it was a handwritten note. This time, there were only 4 words. "You refused me yesterday." I stood there staring at the bowl. Then my phone rang. It was Mama Ngozi. I answered. She didn't even greet me. She shouted, "Amaka, don't touch that food." Then the call suddenly went silent. I looked at the bowl again. And from inside my room, I heard someone whisper my name. I stood outside my bedroom, staring at the bowl of rice. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped my phone. Then I heard the whisper again. "Amaka." I didn't answer. I remembered Mama Ngozi's warning, so I quickly stepped away from the food and called my older brother, Chinedu.
I told him everything. At first, he laughed and said I was letting market stories scare me. But when I sent him a picture of the bowl, his voice suddenly changed. Amaka, where did you get that? I told him I didn't know. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, don't touch it. I'm coming. Before he arrived, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. Then a woman's voice came from the other side. Amaka, you refused me yesterday. I couldn't move. The knocking stopped. A few seconds later, my brother arrived with Mama Ngozi. The moment Mama Ngozi saw the bowl, she started crying. I had never seen that woman cry before. She finally told me the truth. Mama Ifeoma wasn't haunting the market because people refused to give her food. She had been wrongly blamed for something she never did. 3 years earlier, the woman who had refused her food was actually the person who stole money from several traders in the market. But when the money disappeared, everyone blamed Mama Ifeoma because she had argued with the woman that same day. Mama Ifeoma became so upset and heartbroken that she left the market. Later, she became seriously ill and died. But before she died, she kept saying one thing. I only wanted people to know the truth. Mama Ngozi had discovered the truth years later, but was too afraid to tell anyone. I looked at the bowl on my doorstep. So why did she come to me? Mama Ngozi wiped her tears. Because you are now using the same store where she used to sell. I suddenly remembered something. The woman who rented the store to me had told me that the previous owner left without collecting some of her belongings. I asked Mama Ngozi what happened to those belongings. She pointed at the black bag. That bag belonged to Mama Ifeoma. I slowly opened it. Inside was an old notebook. On the first page, there was a list of names. Some names had been crossed out. Others had dates beside them. At the bottom of the last page, I saw one sentence. I don't want revenge. I want someone to tell the truth. That was when I understood everything. The woman wasn't asking me for food. She was asking me to tell her story. The next morning, I took the notebook to the market and told everyone what Mama Ngozi had revealed. The woman who had accused Mama Ifeoma years ago was still alive. When she heard the truth had finally come out, she confessed everything. She admitted that Mama Ifeoma had never stolen anything. For 3 years, everybody had believed a lie. After that day, the strange thing stopped. No more missing money. No more mysterious bowls. And I never heard that woman's voice again. But there is one thing I still cannot explain. A week later, I was cleaning my store when I found a small piece of paper underneath my table. There were only 3 words written on it. Thank you, Amaka. I kept that paper. I still have it till today. And sometimes, when a customer asks me to give them food on credit, I remember Mama Ifeoma. Not because I'm afraid anymore, but because I learned something I will never forget. Sometimes, the person everyone calls a bad person is simply someone whose side of the story nobody wanted to hear. If this story gave you chills, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, if you were Amaka, would you have opened that black bag? And if you want more Nigerian stories with twists you won't see coming, subscribe.